Hello, buddy, and welcome back here to the College Football Network. Today, we have our recap of the quarterfinal round games of the college football playoffs. I'm here today with,
Totally T-Man CFB.
as we will go ahead and get into it. We will be going in order, I would assume, here. But we will go ahead and kick us off here with the first out of the four second round games with Penn State versus Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. This game wasn't really close, in my opinion. Now, it was close at times, especially midway through that third quarter. Boise State pulled to within 3 at one point, I believe. But this is probably the most competitive game outside of Arizona State, Texas, competitiveness wise. But other than that, it wasn't really that exciting. Ashton Jeanty was pretty much shut down all game. Penn State defensive line did a great job at shutting him down most of the game. If you look at the game leaders stat-wise for each team, Drew Allard, 13 of 25, 171 yards, 3 touchdowns. Katron Allen, 17 carries, 134 yards. Tyler Warren, 6 catches, 63 yards, a couple touchdowns. Madison for Boise State, 23 of 35, 304 yards, a touchdown. 3 very important, not so great interceptions for him. Ashton Jeanty, 30 carries for 104 yards. And Lauder, the tight end, 4 catches, 96 yards, in that long 53-yard touchdown somewhere in there. If you look at win probability, well, don't even really need to look at that. If you look at scoring summary, Tyler Warren, 640 left in the first quarter. Got a touchdown pass from Drew Allard and made it 7-0 Penn State. Then a few minutes later, 3:35 left in the first quarter, Amari Evans, the wide receiver from Penn State, 38-yard touchdown catch, 14-0 Penn State. And now we look like we're going to head to another blowout here. But about halfway through the second quarter, Boise State gets on the board, makes it 14-7. Penn State adds a 40-yard field goal at the end of the half. We got a halftime with Penn State up 17-7. About 4 minutes into the third quarter, Lauder, the tight end, a 53-yard touchdown pass, probably the brightest spot for Boise State in this game to cut it to 3. 7:22 left in the third. Tyler Warren from 13 yards out again. And then with about 5 minutes left in the fourth, 4:54 to be exact, Singleton, the 58-yard touchdown run, which basically put the cherry on top of this game for Penn State.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was impressed with how Boise State put up a fight in this game. If you look at how many yards they had over 400 yards, even with Ashton Jeanty getting shut down for a majority of the game. Jeanty,
yeah.
How many touchdowns did Jeanty have? Because I know he only ran for just over 100 yards.
Remember how many
but Boise State, they fought. They had over 400 yards. But ultimately, they couldn't capitalize with points, and that's what really kept them down in this game. Penn State did look like the superior team.
Now, I will say, I know a lot of people are disappointed of Ashton Jeanty falling short of the rushing record by 28 yards. Obviously, still a great season for him as he declared for the NFL draft a little while before this game. Penn State did cover the spread as well as the money line, but Boise State under. It was the under that hit, not the over, for people who are wondering how the betting odds went. Great game overall. The one thing that really impressed me most about this game, especially for Penn State, was the fact that I wasn't really surprised that they were able to keep Jeanty bottled up as much as they did, but more so the fact they let Jeanty start to get going there towards the end of the game.
It was the end of the game, really.
Yeah, towards the end of the game, to where it really didn't matter But nevertheless, great game for the Penn State defense. This is
They
probably
were
been their
more
best
bigger
game
and
of the
physical,
season.
definitely.
Yeah, I'd say this has definitely been Penn State's best game of the year so far, defensively at least. Offensively, we can leave that up in the air. I would consider this more so a complete game for Penn State, more so than the SMU game. Reflectively off because the offense actually showed up in this game. It wasn't just the defense carrying them the whole game.
Can I say something about the record?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that Barry Sanders record, I know a lot of people wanted Ashton Jeanty to break it, but I'm kind of glad that he didn't because Sanders had that record in 11 games. That record is actually crazy because he did that in 11 games. So I don't think that record should be broken.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. But
And you take away the bowl game performance too.
Another thing I'd like to kind of shine a light on here quick is Penn State's running backs. They had a lot more impact on this game than I thought they would in the first place.
Allen and Singleton, they had a big impact on this game. Definitely one of the better pair of backs in the country. They ran for over 200 yards in this game.
Yeah, I believe
that was really the difference. Penn State just controlling the line of scrimmage and being the much more bigger and physical team at the offensive line.
Yeah, I believe Singleton was around 100 yards as well. I know Katron Allen was well over 100 yards. But also Tyler Warren, just a beast. Not a lot more that I have to say that I can really think of about this game. Do you have anything to kind of add on here before we move on to the next game?
I'll say one last thing about this Penn State team. I gotta say, I think this is the best Penn State team that we have seen under James Franklin. They are more complete. They're a lot more explosive on offense this year with Andy Koldenicki. I don't know if I pronounced that name right, but yeah, that offense is a lot more explosive. Drew Aller has taken that step forward too.
Okay, so we will go ahead and move on to the next game here. Oh, I don't want that. As we had Texas, Arizona State in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. A 2 overtime game, by far the best game of this playoffs, probably the best playoff game in the past 10 years, if I'm really being honest. Texas won this game 39-31. If you look at the stat leaders for each team, Quinn Ewers, 20 of 30, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a costly interception. Wins nor wines, not however you pronounce his name. 18 carries, 45 yards. Golden, 7 catches, 149 yards, a touchdown. Levitt for Arizona State, 24 of 46, 222 yards and a pick. Scattaboo, arguably a better than Ashton Jeanty. I'd just say that because he plays.
I mean, he might not be lying when he said he was the best running back in the country. He's a monster. He threw for a touchdown and ran for 140 as well. He became a quarterback, receiver, and a running back all in one game.
He had 30 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, let alone his passing stats. He was also the leading receiver with 8 catches, 99 yards.
Yeah, that's what he carried that offense. Dude's a monster.
If you look at the scoring summary, 8:59 left in the first. Arizona State takes a 3-0 lead. About a minute later, Texas DeAndre Moore Jr. from 23 yards out from Quinn Ewers takes a 7-3 lead. About a minute later, again, Silas Bolden, a 75-yard punt return, 14-3, and Texas had only ran 3 offensive plays, which is kind of crazy to think about that. Second quarter, Texas adds a field goal at 17-3 at half. Third quarter, this is where everything flipped on its head. The safety and then the field goal, 17-8 head to the fourth. Texas gets another touchdown, makes it 24-8. 6:31 left in the game is really where Arizona State really put the pedal to the metal here with a 42-yard touchdown pass from Cam Scattaboo to make it 24-16 and another touchdown and 2-point conversion, both by Cam Scattaboo again to make it 24 apiece. Went to overtime. Cam Scattaboo again, a touchdown run. from 3 yards out, makes it a 7-point game. Golden receives a 28-yard touchdown pass from Quinn Ewers to tie it at 31. Then ultimately, Gunnar Helm, a very underrated tight end, in my opinion, gets the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, I'll say Arizona State, like, they look like the better team even when they were down in this game. Like, I was surprised they did not find a way to win this game. They looked better the whole game. I'll say that targeting call, I don't know what you think about that, but that kind of screwed them over.
I actually never really saw the targeting call as I wasn't really able to keep track of this game a ton. I hear it was a very bad targeting call.
Well, if they called targeting there, that game would have been turned around. Arizona State would have won that game. Because, like, if you the receiver was defenseless, but not only that, the receiver was defenseless, but there was also helmet to helmet contact. I mean, I'm not an official, I don't know, but like I feel like I can kind of see that was targeting. I've watched enough football to know that's targeting. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I just feel like Arizona State looked like the much better team for like a majority of this game.
Yes, if you look at team stats, in total, Texas 375 yards, 1 turnover, 17 first downs. For Arizona State, 510 yards, a turnover, 29 first downs. Time of possession, pretty much almost decided this game. It's crazy to think how much Arizona State won this time of possession and still lost this game. Texas, 22 minutes, 6 seconds time possession. Arizona State, 37 minutes and 54 seconds time possession.
I mean, they had a couple drives where they walked down the field and couldn't do anything off of it. Like that one possession where they got inside the 5, I think it was. They failed on 4th down, and then they got that safety. They just had failed drives over and over again, but they were moving the ball and dominating.
Now, I will say I do expect good things from Arizona State in the future. Do not get me wrong.
Sam Levitt, he's going to be a good quarterback. I think he's only a freshman this year.
Yep, he will be a sophomore next year.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say? I got something to say.
I will add on, obviously, Cam Scadaboo, I believe, leaving after this year. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. So that will hurt them a little bit. But I do expect this Arizona State team to be dangerous for years to come, especially with Sam Levitt at the helm of this offense.
Yeah. And on Texas, I don't like their chances against Ohio State. I'm just going to start with saying that. I do not like their chances. I think it could be a similar game to Ohio State and Oregon. What do you think?
I would say that I think it depends on obviously a very under the radar storyline going on with that game. It's Quinn Ewers facing his former team. But if I put it in my last video, if we see the teams from the first 2 games from Ohio State and Texas, that game will not even be close.
Quinn Ewers will have to play a career game. Like, he's going to have to play the best game he's ever played. It's going to have to be a generational game if they want to win this. And people will say that Texas defense, it's elite. It's the best defense Ohio State has faced. But I don't really know if I believe that. I think Texas's defense is a bit overrated.
So, do you have anything else to say before we go ahead and move on to, speaking of Ohio State, and Oregon?
Yeah, Texas, I really think they should have lost this game. They did win it, so I'll give them credit. Arizona State has a bright future, and I'm interested to see what Texas can do against Ohio State. Can they give them a run for their money? I don't know.
So we will go ahead and move on here to what was supposed to be the game of the playoffs, which we all know, unfortunately, did not turn out to be. Ohio State beating Oregon 41-21 in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. Will Howard, 17-26, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. Henderson, 8 carries, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith, I mean, what? You can't guard him. I don't care who you are. 7 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel, 29-41. Not a bad day, even though they lost for Oregon. 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. James, 7 carries, 14 yards, went out injured during the second quarter, I believe. I know he didn't come back in. I can tell you that much. And Trayshawn Holden, the Alabama transfer, 7 catches, 116 yards, and a couple touchdowns.
Yeah, I have 2 takeaways for this game. I just got to say, this is Ohio State's natty to lose. If they play this brand of football, I don't even see anybody keeping the game close against them. I don't see anybody keeping it close. I think this is the best version of Ohio State. And the second takeaway, the college football playoff system is completely flawed. Oregon should not be playing this Ohio State team in the second round. And honestly, I'd be brave enough to say that the first round, I'm not brave, but like it's not brave. I think it's clear to say this, that the teams that had a bye in the first round, they did not play their best game in the second round. They came out flat. All 4 of them did. So I don't know what to say. They need to fix this system.
I think part of that bye week issue being, instead of it just being 1 bye week, it's 3.5 weeks, which can equate to rust.
Yeah.
Which I think might have something to do with it there. I do think they just need to eliminate the bye week, go to 16 teams, and
I'm with
just
you.
have
Even
8
no
games
auto bids,
round
honestly.
1 and go to the national championship. I think that's how you fix the bye week situation, at least. If you look at the scoring summary, which is going to be quite busy here in the first half, 1 minute into the game, Jeremiah Smith from 45 yards out, 7-0 Ohio State. About 7 minutes later, a little less than that, Emeka Ibuka from 42 yards out, 14-0 Ohio State.
Oh, this breaks my heart as an Oregon fan.
10 seconds into the second quarter, Jaden Fielding, a 46-yard field goal, 17-0 Ohio State. I will add on here about Jaden Fielding having a bounce-back game, especially after that Michigan game where he missed 2 chip shot field goals in that game from under 40 yards. If you look at then 10:28 in the second, Jeremiah Smith, 43 yards out. The safety got completely lost in that play. I don't know where he was going. 24-0 Ohio State. The safety ran the opposite way of where Jeremiah Smith was going on that play, so the ball was in the air. Travion Henderson, a few minutes later, from 66 yards out in a touchdown run, 31-0. About 3 minutes, 2:59 to be exact, until half. Jaden Fielding, a 36-yard field goal, 34-0. And then your Ducks, as time expires in the first half, Dylan Gabriel to Trayshawn Holden from 5 yards out, and then to Justice Lowe for the 2-point conversion to make it a bit tighter, 34-8 at halftime. Then with 8:55 in the third, Noah Winnington, a 2-yard touchdown run, makes it 34-15. At that point, even as an Ohio State fan, I will admit I was thinking we might have a bit of a game here, especially with knowing flashbacks for me, obviously. Georgia, Ohio State back in 2022. Then Henderson with 2:19. 8-yard touchdown run. Fielding's PAT was good to make it 41-15. That's when you pretty much, I hate to say it that early, especially late third, but that was basically what sealed the game there, was that 8-yard Henderson touchdown run, considering Oregon did not do a ton of anything yet after that first touchdown drive to start the third quarter. And then with 10 minutes left to go in the fourth, Trayshawn Holden on 3rd and a mile. I want to say it was like 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 13 from 27 yards out, makes it 41-21 after the 2-point conversion was failed. And the only way to put this, it was a massacre.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith, he's unstoppable. He's the most unstoppable player in the playoffs right now. I mean, Cam Scatterbo is great, but Jeremiah Smith, he's probably playing on the best offense in the playoffs right now. Arizona State was eliminated. But Jeremiah Smith, he had 7 receptions for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Another thing with Jeremiah Smith, he's only a freshman. He's an extreme matchup problem. He's very tall, and I don't see anybody stopping him.
And I will add, I know you were talking about Texas, Ohio State, and how you don't think Texas could beat Ohio State a few minutes ago there. Part of that is Jeremiah Smith and why he is such a big asset to Ohio State, let alone is he basically unguardable, because not to say I like the cockiness, but obviously basically warning Oregon, don't play man against me or you're going to get burnt. And as we saw that come aged like fine wine, as people would say. But if we're being honest, it wasn't just a man. He was just destroying Oregon. It didn't matter if it was man, zone. He was just absolutely shredding their defense.
Like that catch he had in the backfield coming out of the sweep in the backfield, I think it was. It wasn't a run or anything, but it was like a kind of a sweep pass, like a screen pass. He was gone. And it's not just Jeremiah Smith. I mean, that offense is really good. If they take away Smith, they have Ibuka. And if you look at the defense, that defense is elite. They completely shut down Oregon's. That too. But they completely shut down Oregon's run game, and they took away Tez Johnson, their best receiver. I know Oregon had some injuries. Evan Stewart was out from the beginning, and they lost their top running back too, so that was tough for Oregon. Yeah, and let's not take away from Oregon's 13-0 season, but this was not a great performance from them.
And as Dan Lanning said, against Michigan, Ohio State it just wasn't their day. And as Dan Lanning really summed it up, it just wasn't Oregon's day during the Rose Bowl there.
I mean, a lot of people didn't like that comment, but I just thought he was being honest. It wasn't Ohio State's day against Michigan. It wasn't Oregon's day against Ohio State. No, I mean, it doesn't mean it's an excuse. Oregon should have been prepared for that game, but they weren't. Ohio State's obviously the best team in the country.
The thing with Jeremiah Smith is, back to the Texas thing here very, very quick. What worries me is Texas's secondary. They have struggled against the pass at times this year. And especially going up against, I mean, I'll just say it outright at this point. Jeremiah Smith's the best wide receiver in the country. It's not even close.
I'm with you. I agree.
As a freshman,
T-Mac's crazy too, but he's not really in the picture anymore. We're in the playoffs.
The thing that worries me is Texas's DBs are smaller, about the same size or smaller than Oregon's. And if you look at that, 6'4" against 6 foot, that ain't going to cut it.
No. Yeah. Oregon, I thought they had one of the best secondaries in the country, but I knew their weakness was height, and they got torched there. That was definitely a problem.
And the one benefit Ohio State has from Jeremiah Smith going into this Texas game is the fact that if they are in a hole, let's say Texas has all the momentum, they're up by 10 plus, middle of the second quarter, middle of the third quarter. I don't care if they have Jeremiah Smith triple covered, just throw it up to him, he'll catch it. Yeah, I mean, there's literally no stopping the guy unless you literally tackle him for a penalty.
I mean, we could give all the credit to the players. They deserve it. This is the most talented team in the country. But I think this coaching staff is out to prove something. Ryan Day, he's out to prove that he can win a natty. Chip Kelly, he's out to prove that he can still call plays at a high level. But more importantly, or not more importantly, but something that's very intriguing, maybe people might not talk about enough, is Jim Knowles, that defensive coordinator. He had an excellent game plan. And it cost, how do I say this? Let's just say Ohio State had 8 sacks. Ohio State had 8 sacks. They put more pressure on the quarterback. Last time, I don't think they had any sacks against Oregon. Maybe 1 or 2.
Last time against Oregon.
Yeah, it's because they didn't pressure the quarterback. But this defense has taken a different approach. And Jim Knowles, he's really adjusted his game plan, and it really helped against Oregon. And they had 8 sacks because of it.
I will say, you kind of just stole what I was going to say right there. The difference in this game was last time Ohio State could not get pressure on Dylan Gabriel for the life of them. So he just had time to sit back in a pocket for 10 seconds all day and pick that defense apart. This game, they were in his face basically every single or every other play. I will add on one last thing here quick before we go ahead and move on to Notre Dame, Georgia. In my opinion, obviously that Michigan loss stings, and I think part of this, obviously, this is a veteran Ohio State team, so part of it could be, them just saying, we need to tune it up because it's the playoffs. But, I think Ohio State is starting hearing the doubters towards start of this playoffs, especially going up against Tennessee and all the Tennessee fans about, they couldn't beat Oregon. They barely beat Nebraska. You couldn't beat a 7-5 Michigan team. I feel like they heard that and they just took it up another level. And even though that's more so a theory at the moment than proven, but I really think what happened is Michigan planting the flag flipped the switch in Ohio State.
Yeah, that Michigan game, I really don't know what happened. If you look at that Michigan game and then look at the way Ohio State is playing, if you're a new college football fan, you don't know what's going on. You do not know what sport you are watching. But like Ohio State, they did not have a great game plan going into that Michigan game. It wasn't the talent, it was the game plan. They were playing soft and they weren't playing to their best. They did not have a great game plan. But now that they're in the playoffs, they know they have so much to play for. Ryan Day has turned it up a notch and they are playing aggressive.
Now, I will say, historically in the playoffs, we have seen Ryan Day act like I can't say the rest, head when it comes to performance of his team in the playoffs. I mean, if you look at the Georgia game, if you look at the Tennessee game, the Oregon game, Ryan Day in the playoffs is a whole different Ryan Day to how he coaches in the regular season. So, do you have any final thoughts here before we go ahead and get to the last of the 4 games here?
Yeah, let me just say we got to give credit to Will Howard because he's not getting enough of the appreciation. A lot of people think he's just this filler quarterback, but he's done an excellent job. He's been super consistent, and this Ohio State team is peaking at the right time.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and head on to the last game here. Notre Dame, Georgia in the All-State Sugar Bowl. This was pushed back till January 2nd, and obviously, unfortunate lose there out of New Orleans, sending prayers to New Orleans over that way, as there was a horrific event that happened over there. I will not get into the details of it here while we are recording, but
I'm just glad they got the game to get going on. Prayers up though.
Yeah. As we see here, Notre Dame wins 23-10 against a undermanned, injured kind of. This is probably the worst coaching performance I've ever seen out of Kirby Smart.
Can I just say, I'm with you on that. And Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman more specifically, he needed this win for the trajectory of Notre Dame football. This was a big win for him as a coach. And I think this solidified him as a top 5 football coach, at least in college football.
Yeah, if you look at the passing stats leaders, Riley Leonard, 15-24, 90 yards and a touchdown. He also had 14 carries for 80 yards. Ferguson, the leading receiver, 4 catches, 46 yards. Gunnar Stockton had a heck of a game for his first career start being in the playoffs. 20-32, 234 yards and a touchdown. Trevor Etienne, 11 carries, 38 yards. Smith, 1 catch, 67 yards, which got 15 yards taken off of that because Georgia player hilariously running into the ref. If you look at the scoring summary, 12-14 in the second. Georgia, Woodring makes a 41-yard field goal. Ugly goes up 3-0. I don't know why to have that twice on here. 8-20 in the second. Jeter, 44-yard field goal, ties up at 3. 39 seconds till half. Jeter, 48-yard field goal, makes it 6-3. 27 seconds till half. Collins, 13-yard touchdown pass from Riley Leonard, makes it 13-3 going into halftime. And I believe Notre Dame scored like 10 points in 57 seconds or something like that. 17 points in 54 seconds, as you can see there in the title of that little clip, which is crazy to think of game time. In the third quarter, 15 seconds in, Notre Dame, Jaden Harrison, 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown to make it 20-3. And that, in my opinion, is where Notre Dame really just took this game over.
They bring it all in special teams. They play 3 phases of the game.
Then 9:36 in the third, Cash Jones 32-yard touchdown pass, a beautiful pass there by Gunnar Stockton, makes it 20-10. And then in the fourth, about 2 minutes into the fourth, not even, Mitch Jeter 47-yard field goal, 23-10, and that's how we got to our final score. If you look at team stats, Notre Dame 244 yards, no turnovers, 14 first downs. Georgia 296 total yards, 2 turnovers, which is really the huge difference in the game, the 2 turnovers, and 16 first downs. Time of possession, Georgia 28 minutes, 13 seconds. Notre Dame 31 minutes, 47 seconds.
Yeah, Notre Dame, they have a legit defense. Even without their best defensive lineman, Riley Mills, they really put up a great performance on defense. They dominated and held that Georgia offense to 10 points, and that was impressive to me.
Yeah, I will say this Georgia team did not feel right after Carson Beck went down with that injury.
I think even with Carson Beck, they don't win this game because I don't think the quarterback position made the huge difference in this game. I think Notre Dame was just the better all-around team.
Well, one thing that really goes under the radar, just for betting people here, Notre Dame did cover the spread, the under hit, and Notre Dame covered the money line. I'll include this for the Ohio State game quick as well. I forgot about this. One thing that flies under the radar in these games is rushing yardage. Ohio State held Oregon at like negative 26 rushing yards or negative 23 rushing yards, something like that.
Yeah, it was all passing for Oregon. It was like most in the second
half. The difference in this game, keep in mind, Georgia lost to a quarterback that threw for 90 yards, which I don't know how. Don't get me wrong, Georgia's defense showed up. It's a matter of the offense just really didn't show up.
Look, I think this Notre Dame team is a lot similar to the Michigan team of last year. Not anywhere near as good as them, but like the same type of team. They are very good at forcing turnovers, and that's really helped them in a lot of games. If it wasn't for the turnovers they had in this game, they wouldn't have dominated Georgia.
The one story I would like to point out is my sole reason, this gets overlooked a lot, why Notre Dame really dominated Georgia, even though the score doesn't hugely reflect it because Notre Dame only won by 13, is just like Oregon, Georgia cannot run the ball for the life of them.
Notre Dame's run defense is really good. They find ways to win a bunch of slugfests. This Notre Dame team, if there's any team that might be able to capitalize on Ohio State and contain them, it might be this Notre Dame team because they're a similar type of team to the teams like Nebraska and Michigan.
So I will add on here quick. Notre Dame, in my opinion, they would be the best secondary matchup for Ohio State in this playoffs that are left.
I agree.
But the only issue with that, obviously, Benjamin Morrison being out, because I would love to see Benjamin Morrison versus Jeremiah Smith one-on-one. That would have been an absolute movie if it were to happen. But unfortunately, he's out for the rest of the season. But nevertheless, Xavier Watts, ball hawk safety, All-American. As far as I know, he went down in the Georgia game. I don't know if that's because of an ankle injury or if his shoe just came off and the coaching staff told him to go down. I don't know if he came back into the game or not.
Hopefully he'll be back because if they don't have Xavier Watts, that's going to be tough.
I really think that, not to jump the gun, obviously, I really think Ohio State and Notre Dame are on the collision course here.
You think it's going to be them in the Natty?
I picked Ohio State versus Penn State, but I want it to be Ohio State versus Penn State. That's why I picked Ohio State versus Penn State.
That's going to be a 50-50 game, in my opinion. It's going to be very close.
Yeah, I picked Ohio State versus Penn State because I want the Big Ten to win the national title because I'm an Ohio State fan, so you want the Big Ten to win. But My gut tells me Notre Dame will beat Penn State, even though I picked Penn State to go to the national title against Ohio State. My gut tells me that Ohio State and Notre Dame are on a collision course.
It's so weird with this Notre Dame team because their offense really isn't that good. Like they have not had a passing attack. When they play elite defenses, they really don't play good on offense, but it's the Russian attack. It's really the Russian attack. And also another thing that makes this team very dangerous is how physical and tough they are on defense.
Now, one thing I would like to add, obviously Notre Dame playing Penn State and Ohio State playing Texas. No matter if Notre Dame makes it past Penn State, what worries me is their primary offense is running the football, as you just noted, with Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love, among others. Don't get me wrong, they can have a good pass game at times. But what
I don't think
worries
that's
me,
going to win them the Natty, though.
what worries me is they would have to go, all three of the teams that are left besides Notre Dame in this playoffs. And don't get me wrong, Notre Dame has a great front seven too. All the other three teams that Notre Dame, and they have a great offensive line. All the other three teams that Notre Dame would have to potentially play, obviously they have to play Penn State or Texas or Ohio State. They all have, this might be jumping the gun, but they all have top 5 front sevens in all college football.
No, I get what you're saying.
And that's going to be hard to run the ball against a team like Penn State, Ohio State, or Texas. Rather than Georgia. Don't get me wrong. Georgia has a great defensive line. But
I mean, when you got backs like Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, I mean, that's going to be tough to stop. I don't care how good your front seven is. And Riley Leonard, he's basically another running back.
But what we saw out of Ohio State versus Oregon, if we do indeed see Notre Dame and Ohio State in the national championship.
Yeah, if Notre Dame can't run the ball, they're not winning that game. No way.
I just don't get it. I just don't think they'd be able to beat Ohio State. Not from the standpoint that they don't have the talent, but from the standpoint that look what Ohio State did to Oregon's rushing attack that has been good all year.
The only way I see Notre Dame beating Ohio State, I think Notre Dame is the only team in the playoffs left that can really beat Ohio State. I don't see Penn State doing it. I think Ohio State has their number. But Notre Dame, the last time these two teams played, Ohio State won by a field goal. It was a battle up front. And I think Notre Dame, maybe they have the physicality on defense and a good enough defense and a good enough secondary to contain that Ohio State offense. Maybe.
One thing on
and if they just control the time of possession and run the ball a lot, maybe this ends up to be like a 20-17 type of game. Maybe Ohio State plays a similar game to Michigan.
I will add on quick. That field goal win was because of an Ohio State game-winning touchdown. And they made the PAT. That's what got them the 3 points.
Right.
And the difference is, what I'm worried about is, yes, I think Notre Dame has improved at the quarterback position and the running back, offense line, defense. I think Notre Dame's improved. What worries me is you have your best defensive back out. Probably the best defensive back in America out in Benjamin Morrison. And you're going up against Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, there might be a matchup problem there. I mean, they're not going to put Xavier Watts man-to-man on him. I wouldn't think so.
I could see them putting Xavier Watts man-to-man on Carnell Tater or Mecca Vabuka. But putting Xavier Watts man-to-man on Jeremiah Smith, that won't happen.
I don't know. But Notre Dame, they play really good man-to-man. I think they play man-to-man, right? They play really good man-to-man secondary.
Well, then again, they have never really faced a superstar wide receiver yet this season.
Oh, no, they haven't. I think Ohio State is definitely the better team. I'm just saying, if any team can beat Ohio State, it's Notre Dame.
One last thing I'll end up here before go ahead and wrap up on this Notre Dame and Georgia stuff and wrap up the video is Ohio State. If their front seven and defense in general, everybody on the field plays like you did against Oregon, like I said, if we do indeed see Notre Dame, Ohio State national championship, only time will tell. But if we do, if Ohio State beats Texas, Notre Dame beats Penn State, for those who are wondering, we see them in the national championship. If Ohio State's defense shows up and plays like they have through these first 2 playoff games and potentially 3, if we see how they play against Texas, just generally across the board, and Notre Dame shows up how they normally have been playing, it is going to be an absolute massacre.
I think it could be different though a lot, because like nearing the end of the postseason, these teams would be they both be playing 3 games by then, so they both have more practice and preparation for this. That's something Oregon did not have going into the Ohio State game, but they did put up some points in the second half.
The key thing that really worries me about this Notre Dame defense is this is pretty much the same Notre Dame defense as last year. Not completely.
I'd say they're better this year.
There was a couple players that left, specifically the linebacker position. But especially that secondary is very, 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 very similar to last year's, with Xavier Watts, Benjamin Morrison, etc. The thing is we saw Kyle McCord against Notre Dame last year. We did not see Will Howard against Notre Dame last year.
And we didn't see Jeremiah Smith against him either.
That's the thing. You had Marvin. I hate to say it, for the sake of the landscape of college football, Jeremiah Smith's better than Marvin Harrison Jr. It's not even close.
Yeah, I think so too. Maybe this year it's a close comparison, but if you look towards the future, Jeremiah Smith's going to wipe them in the dust. It's not going to be close.
I just don't see how any team physically stops Jeremiah Smith enough for them to beat Ohio State. That's all. That's what I'll put that.
I think it's Ohio State's national title to lose. I don't think anybody can beat them. Really, I don't.
So, do you have any closing thoughts here on Notre Dame versus Georgia before we go ahead and wrap this video up here?
I'm impressed with Marcus Freeman and his way to coach games and get creative. I think he needs to get more flowers. I think he deserves his credit. I think this Notre Dame team is pretty good. I think they're very legit on defense, and it's going to be interesting to see what they can do against Penn State.
Yep, it'll be very interesting to see.
I think it's going to be a close game and exciting game for sure.
Yep, that'll probably be the better of the 2 games, especially if Ohio State shows up how they have all postseason. This game,
I mean, Texas might play with a chip on their shoulder if they know they have to play their best game they've played all year. Maybe they have the mentality to do that. Maybe Steve Sark will have them ready. I just don't see it.
Well, we'd like to thank all of you for watching. As only time will tell here, as we just recapped our 4, not semifinal, quarterfinal games between Penn State, Boise State, Arizona State, Texas, Arizona State, Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Georgia. Add those teams if you missed it. Moving on are Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas, Ohio State. Once again, we would like to thank all of you for watching.